Hello everybody, my name is Jeremy, this is Red Means Recording, and today I want to talk to you about a plugin called Smooth Operator from Baby Audio. This is a plugin that looks at incoming audio and attempts to de-resonate it, meaning it attempts to take the incoming signals and de-resonate them dynamically over a threshold. And we have a lot of control, and it does a lot of really cool things to our audio in a way that I think is really interesting. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of like show it off and talk to you a little bit about what it does and why it's important. So to understand what this plugin is doing, let's go ahead and turn it off real quick. We need to understand how audio works, specifically how different types of audio work in the frequency spectrum. So here we have a piano. I'm going to just go ahead and go like this, so we just hear the beginning of this piano. This EQ we have in front of us right here is showing us a lot of information. Specifically, it's showing us where we have buildups of frequencies or resonant points from the lowest end of our human hearing, which is around 20 hertz, to the absolute highest possible hearing range of 20K, of 20,000 hertz up here. Most people can't hear this high, and when you get down here, you can't really like hear it so much as you feel it. When we look at this one piano section right here, which is basically just two notes, it's a C1 and a C2 stacked on top of each other. Let's go back to our EQ and look. So what do we got? What is this buildup right here? Well, this is C1, that note that we played. And this is C2, the other note that we played. And you can see that this one is at around 67 hertz. And this one is around, I don't know, 130 hertz, something like that. And then we have the harmonics of this sound, which you can see in little bumps above here. And these represent all the things that make a piano sound like a piano. These are all really important. And I've kind of gone over this a lot in some videos, but if we take this all the way down, we'll basically hear a sine wave. So there's a relationship between the notes that you play and the frequencies that are created. And then those fundamental frequencies generally have a series of harmonics that come up and create the tone of the instrument that we're used to. So this piano sounds okay on its own, but in a mix, we need to make decisions surrounding what frequencies we present for each instrument so that we can get things to fit better in a mix. And there's a lot of ways we can do that. So let's talk about a few of those. The first one that I would generally reach for is an EQ. So I can take this band here and swoop it around. I'm going to turn off adaptive Q. You can take this band and swoop it around and accentuate or de-accentuate or attenuate frequencies. And generally, an EQ is the first thing that I'm going to reach for when I want to make an adjustment to a sound. I can cut out the fundamental frequency of either of these notes and get less bass. I can come up here and mellow out the piano or get rid of some of its like presence in the 3K range. You can do a lot of things with an EQ. So EQs are generally something I would recommend reaching for first if you want to make an adjustment to your sound. But the thing about an EQ, at least in this form, is that it's static, right? We choose a frequency and then it's stuck there, both in the amount of attenuation that we're getting and also the frequency. We have some other options when it comes to this, like dynamic EQs and multiband compressors. So let's talk about that real quick. This is an equalizer as well, same thing as what we just looked at. Here's our frequency response. So let's say I wanted to get rid of some of the low end here. There's a very similar move to what we just made, right? But again, it's static. So what if I wanted this to react to the amount of frequencies in here? Well, I can make a dynamic EQ, which looks like this. So this is a dynamic reduction of the gain of those frequencies in this part of the frequency spectrum. These are great. These are really useful. But it again, we have to choose a band, and while we do get dynamic gain reduction, it still doesn't really react to anything like you know, we have to make a choice about our Q, I guess is what I have to say, our range. So dynamic EQs, again, very useful. I use them quite a bit. We can also use a multiband compressor to individually compress an entire range of frequencies. And this is really useful as well. So if we go ahead and solo the low end here, we'll get a response that's just that band from 200 down. So I can compress this, which is basically a dynamic EQ in a way. Just kind of looks a little different, right? So this lets you get into a particular band and treat it in a particular way, which is very, very, very useful. But again, it's not dynamic. It's not reacting to frequencies as they change. And what we're going to see next is that when we change notes here, the frequencies change. So keep an eye on the fundamental frequency as we go from here to here. See how these jump? That's because we're changing note. Changing notes from C to B flat. So when we do that, the entire spectrum of these harmonics and the fundamental frequencies change position, which is something that can be difficult to deal with when you are trying to dial in an instrument in a particular frequency range. Let's take a look at something like a drum. Let's grab an EQ and let's grab another option. So now I have grabbed our EQ again, and I've also grabbed an EQ that has some interesting deresonation options, so we can kind of start to get towards what the smooth operator is going to do for us in a more dynamic way. Here's a drum loop. You can see our kick is down here. We can see it right there. Our snare has some presence right up here. And then we have our percussion and hi-hats and upper harmonics up here. So there are many occasions when I'm working on drums where I would like some spiky frequencies sort of like taken out a little bit, taken out of the game a little bit so that my loop fits a little bit better or my drums fit a little bit better into the mix. Nova will do that for us, but only in a particular way. So I'm going to have it learn real quick. It's now taken a look at our frequency response, and I can now dynamically deresonate this drum loop. So these are the nodes that Nova, the TDR Nova GE, which is a great plugin, has decided are the ones that stick out. Now, something you have to understand is that these are static. This drum loop doesn't have the pitch changes that the piano did. So we're going to have a much better and easier time deresonating this in a particular way. And in case it wasn't clear, these are dynamic EQs. Let's take a listen to A/B this real quick. The difference is subtle, but what you get when you have something like this on is sort of a smoother response across the board. Things don't pop out quite as much. And when we are mixing a track or trying to get things to fit together, that kind of smoothness, that kind of like even response at the expense of dynamics to an extent is really, really important in getting a mix to sit right. So this is an option, but again, it's static, right? These aren't moving around. They are stuck to a band. And they're very, very localized. Let's talk about vocals real quick, one of the more dynamic instruments in there, and then I'm going to start talking about smooth operator.
All you can do is pretend.
If you look at this vocal response here, you can see very clear movement of our fundamental frequency plus these harmonics here. These resonances sticking up, right? One of the things that we do to vocals quite a bit is we de-ess them. And a de-esser is a dynamic processor. It's a dynamic EQ, so to speak, that keys into a particular frequency range. So let's listen to what that can do for us. Up in this range, we have S's, K's, and breaths. So a de-esser is usually applied to a vocal in order to tame those because they stick out really hard in a mix, and we're very sensitive to these frequencies. Not too much of it, we'll get rid of the S's completely and it will sound really weird. But I just wanted to show you that a de-esser is another processor in this sort of like realm, right? Like it will help us tame particular frequencies based on a particular frequency key. All right, so let's talk about smooth operator and why I think it's cool. First, let's try this on a vocal, okay? So what we have here is a threshold control. Dynamics processors have a threshold, meaning that anything that goes above this threshold will be processed. And what this is going to do is it's going to take a look at the incoming frequencies and reduce them based on the focus amount.
Stop pretending to be my friend. All you can do,
So you can see
all you can do
this fundamental frequency is getting pushed down because bass frequencies have the most power in the mix. And when we look at this from a full mix perspective, we will definitely see that. So what we can do is pull this up, and now we don't compress any of the low frequencies if we don't want to. If we wanted to get rid of body in this voice, this is where we would go. If we want to get rid of high end, we can do this.
Stop pretending to be my friend.
I know for this one, I think I'm going to want to reduce a little bit of this mid-range here so it fits better in with things. We can also solo a band. So let's take a listen to what these are each doing. Anytime that you can listen to a particular band of your music and get insight into exactly how it feels in your ears is really, really good. You can widen this cue here by using your mouse wheel, which is pretty neat. And you can move the actual threshold node up and down to give you a different sort of like balance between low end and high end. So let's take a listen to these S's up here. So Smooth Operator can act as a de-esser, which is pretty neat. Focus will decrease or increase the amount of reduction. Oh, and by the way, we can change colors. I know that's important to you. So not only does this give you like a ton of visual feedback in terms of what's going on with your sound, but it also gives you the ability to zero in on individual bands and listen to what's going on in that range and make decisions about how you want to dynamically de-resonate a whole section of frequencies. This is a combination sort of a multiband compressor and dynamic EQ. And it works really, really fast, and it's really, really fun to see how it cleans up your audio. The first thing we're going to notice here with the threshold and everything reset is that it's going to go after the low frequencies first. And that's because low frequencies will always present higher in dB than higher frequencies in a normally mixed kind of sound. These have a lot more power, and they're going to present a lot higher. So we may need to make decisions as we use this on various instruments to not compress the low ends if we don't want to. Now, in this case, I think there's a little too much sub right around here. It's a little boomy for my taste. And then I want to go after these cowbells, which you can see clicking up here. See how they actually have a pitch right here? So let's go after those. It's before and after this. We're definitely getting a smoother response on our like cowbell area up there. One of the things that I'm always listening for when I'm working on a mix is literally how it feels, how it is hitting my ears. Are you like hitting your ears in the way that you want to hit your ears? Sound is a physical experience, and this gives us sort of an insight into that. Let's go to our full mix now. Are you tired of this example yet? Yeah, I am too. Let's go ahead and open up another track and see how we can use Smooth Operator on that, okay? Okay, so here's another example. This is a full track. That technically is already mixed, but I think we can do a little bit more work on it with Smooth Operator. So let's go through these tracks one by one and add a Smooth Operator and see what we get. I don't want to compress the bass in this, but I do want to go after those high frequencies right here. This is one of the ones that was really hard for me to tame, actually. Maybe a little bit in the bass as well, just a little bit to smooth it out. Awesome. Now it's a little less harsh on the ears. Let's do the drums next. So we don't want to compress the low end here, but I do want to go after these frequencies here on the hi-hat. Find it a little jarring. Remember, the goal here is to kind of contain what the mix is doing a little bit so that it fits better together. Yeah, that's much nicer. I usually have a really hard time with hi-hats, getting them quite right, especially when I have stuff from my modular, because it gets compressed in there in the VPM EQD and then gets over here and can get a little out of hand. All right, so this is from the Deluge. We're going to go after those high frequencies too. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Way up here. We don't need anywhere near as much as these up here. These are important up here, this air area, but we have a little much. Let's go ahead and pull this back up and pull this down. Yeah, that's nicely contained up there now. Let's go back to where the vocals were and play around with this a little bit. So we've got a lot of stuff sticking out here, and I was using Ozone to do this. I was using multiband dynamics, a vintage compressor, a limiter, and a spectral shaper to go after this range that I thought I didn't like. But I'm going to get rid of that, and we're going to use Smooth Operator instead. Let's go ahead and solo. I think we're going to want to compress this area. Yeah, look at all those S's sticking through. One of the things that'll happen when you like compress a vocal a whole bunch in multiple stages is sometimes the S's can come out again. That's before Smooth Operator. See how we have too much mid-range in the vocal? Too much presence in the S's. I'll go ahead and turn this on now. It just smooths out the entire thing, like literally, like that's what it says on the tin, right? So yeah, really, really cool way to zero in on some of the sort of errant frequencies or resonances that you have in your music and sort of contain them and see them and listen to them, which is really cool. Let's go ahead and try it on our main mix, shall we? Listen to this before and then after. Before, after. Kind of subtle, but what we're actually hearing here is because we are attenuating the top end stuff and smoothing out the top end, the bass comes through a little bit clearer, which is an interesting artifact of this process. So I hope this was interesting for you. I think it's a really, really interesting plugin. Baby Audio sent it to me, and then I was like, actually, do you want me to do a video on this? Because I think it reveals a lot about how resonances work and how we can use them to reshape our mixes in pretty subtle or really transformative ways, both on individual instruments and also on the master bus, if that is your thing. So check out Smooth Operator. There's a link in the description. Let me know if you have any questions or any other plugins like this that you really, really like. I know we have things like Golfoss and stuff like that, but I haven't tried those. I've only tried this one. So yeah, thanks for watching. My name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording, and I hope you have a wonderful day.